Hello, beautiful ones. Welcome, welcome, welcome from the wonderful Mexico. So I've just, those of you who follow my journey and those I'm in more regular connection with will know that I am just about to commence a beautiful Mystic Adventures retreat. So another beautiful retreat where I co-create with other wonderful teachers, experiences to, support people to really come back to the truth of who they are, the truth of who we all are as, these divine light beings. And, what happens when we come into this incarnation is that we have to slow down our frequency enough to come into physical form. And as a result of this, we forget. We forget a lot of the higher frequency information that is starting to trickle back through for us, as a collective. It's really so remarkable that, the greater reality exists within the quantum, which I'm sure you've all heard of. But to be able to access the different layers of information, we need to be a vibrational match. Raise our frequency is by letting go of the old stories that keep us stuck in that old world density. All of those faulty beliefs that have us believe all sorts of not very kind things about ourselves and about others and the world around us too. So, this wasn't the topic of this conversation, but please feel free if you do have any questions about anything at all. I do my best work in response because then I can connect into the field and draw information down for you from that. And another thing I just wanted to caveat as well is I'm not a guru. I'm no different to anybody else. But what has allowed me to be able to access this layer of information is the amount of inner work I have done, the amount of faulty stories I have allowed myself to release over the decades, really. And things are so much more accelerated now that it doesn't take that long. you know, there's so much more as our collective ascends, there is so much more of the higher frequency information much closer to us because we are all expanding and elevating our frequency in concert with the beautiful earth. All of these wonderful plasmic injections that are coming through to the earth are for the intention to hold more light. That's what plasma does. It's a cosmic element that holds more light in physicality. And so it's happening. Like you would all know if you're coming to this level of wisdom teachings because you are an evolved soul. I teach evolved souls. I remember when, I was starting to free my oracular potentials, my oracular gifts to, sharing higher frequency information. I initially hesitated at the level of what I was bringing through because I wanted to make it understandable to to more people. And so whilst it becomes clearer and I do slow it down a bit. I used to get so excited and speak really quickly as well, which also added another layer of, difficulty for some people. But then what I came to realize is I'm not here to guide everybody. I'm here to guide evolved souls. And so those of you that are here get what I'm talking about because you have already lived many incarnations and many layers of evolution, that you are much closer than you probably realize to your unification of light within the physical, because you do understand, this level of, what I'm sharing. Even sometimes if concepts are new, which often they are, and they are for me too. That's why I love these question and answer sessions, because it really allows me to go into the field and draw down what is required to answer the question. And I actually learn a lot from it as well. So please keep those questions coming. It's always such a fascinating contemplation. And I really want to put it out there too, to share your thoughts and views about what people are asking as well, or share any reflections on the information that I'm sharing, because that's how we continue to navigate even more deeply into the ether. If there's anything that is a little unclear for you, don't feel bad about it. Like, this is really high level information that you, as an evolved soul and a keeper of wisdom, so just receiving that, you as a keeper of wisdom do understand, if not most, of the things that I'm sharing. And if there is ever anything that's kind of sitting there and it's like, oh, it feels really interesting, but could you explain more about that? Please do, because it also helps me to refine the level of clarity as well, but then also to support you to make those interim connections to the layer of information that I'm accessing at any time through these teachings and sharings as well. So please don't be shy. I always love, and it's always stuck with me, what a favorite old professor of mine, shared during my academic days, was that there are no silly questions. There are only silly people who don't ask them. This is what he said. There are only silly people who don't ask them when they have them to get clarification. And you're probably not the only one wondering the same questions. So please feel free to ask for any clarifications or refinements or deepenings into, any of the information that, is coming through for us during these beautiful transmissions. Anyway, enough bubbling. I had a beautiful question from our lovely Jennifer. How do we move through our blocks around service and fears of causing harm or changing relationships with others through our work? I really want to give more in service, but I'm feeling my fears sabotaging what's available. All right, so I'm going to just take a moment to, we can all do this too if you're listening to this, just take a moment, to sit. you know, if we're multitasking, it can make it difficult to absorb the level of, transmission that's here for you to integrate as wisdom if you are in a relaxed space. So I recommend that if you are multitasking right now, to maybe just pause this video. And when you get a chance, even just sit down with a cup of tea and, be in that open, contemplative, reflective space, because it's going to integrate into your wisdom body much more easily when we're relaxed. Because what happens when we're busy, and those of you who have done studies with me before understand the nervous system and how when we're stressed, the nervous system constricts. You would feel it. You go, oh, and you feel all tense and tight. But what happens is our energy gets really tense and tight as well. And so we're not open. We're not open to receiving, pretty much. And that's not just receiving abundance from the outside world. It's also receiving layers of information, that are here for us, to really integrate and contemplate as well. So, with this question, the first thing that kind of popped into my heart is that all fears are one fear. So fears are a movement away from love. There's love and there's fear, and they're at the opposite ends of the spectrum. And through these teachings, I've got chocolate in my fingernail. Busted. That's from the cacao this morning. Anyway, so there is love and fear, and they're at opposite ends of the scale. And our true essence is love. And from that space of love, we are in our highest resonance. When we are in fear, we are separate from the love that we are. And so when we're in fear, it's very difficult to be remembering this. And so I know we've shared in other transmissions, but if you're new to this space, that by raising our frequency, we become less of a match to these faulty thought forms. And so when they're there, when they arise, be present to this and recognize that it's not this. It's actually not divine truth. The fact that we're not capable, the fact that we're not this is also a faulty belief, but also the fact that we could cause harm. Hang on, I'm just reading, making sure I get all the aspects of the question. Making sure we're not causing harm or actually changing relationships with people. I'm going to address that one separately because there's another layer to this for this overarching what's coming through to be shared here. And so this frequency of love that we truly are, the more that we can maintain this, the less of a match we are to this. So it's literally, rather than trying to convince ourselves out of this, that by maintaining this higher frequency dynamic more stably, it becomes more of who we are in the everyday, and this becomes less. And so take a moment now and feel into, some of your favorite practices that you use to raise your frequency. And how might you be able to have this more in your everyday existence? Like, it doesn't have to take hours and hours. It can just take minutes here and there and here and there to continue to remind us that this is actually the truth of who we are. This isn't. This is all illusion. This is delusion. And I love in the old Buddhist philosophy, they talk about this as being delusion. Like, literally, one of the causes of suffering of humanity is delusion. And delusion is all of these faulty beliefs that we hold that are not this, that are not the truth of who we really are as these divine light beings. And so when you're recognizing any of these thoughts, holding them with honor, not bypassing, because we want to hold the thought as we move into this frequency. So it actually shifts as we move into this frequency. Really important about conscious evolution. So it's not just bypassing, hiding this and pretending it's not there. It's actually sitting with how this feels and then raise your frequency, and you can literally witness this change. So rather than being stuck in this, hold it in your heart space with honor that it exists. And it's not just existing with you, it's literally existing with probably millions of other people as well around the world, doubting themselves and what they've come here to do, and walking the journey with it back into your higher frequency. And the beautiful thing as that's happening, as you'll feel the energy of this shift in real time. And you literally feel that energy shift. So an example would be connecting in with your beautiful true heart energy, which is the gratitude, joy, appreciation. And so connecting in with those beautiful frequencies and breathing into that while you're still holding this, you'll actually witness this transform. And then once you feel this energy start to stabilize in your field, you go back to this thought before and you'll notice that it actually isn't even there anymore, or you've received the greater reality that this isn't true, that this isn't true. Everything is intention. And when we're operating at this level, the intention is also at this level, which is not this. So if our intention is to help and heal, we're not going to hurt anyone because it's not a match. It's not a frequency match. Remembering everything is energy. And so bringing ourselves back to this reality, this greater reality, not this reality, which is the false, dense reality, that this is what transcends because it is no longer a vibrational match to these old faulty thought forms. And believe me, I used to have them all. Being an overthinker, classically, now I've been able to shift this overthinking into a more relaxed and open contemplative awareness, which is without the stress, which allows me to access the greater reality from this perspective, not from this perspective. And so working on this, raising frequency and stabilizing that isn't difficult, but it requires repetition to be able to break these habits. These are old habits that we've had not only our whole lives, but all of our family lines as well have had these old habits. And it's nobody's fault. We just didn't know any differently last millennium. We didn't know any differently at all. We're playing out all those same stories, generation after generation, just not being aware. But now we are. Everything's shifting and changing, and now we're aware. And so the more that we bring ourselves back to this higher truth, the less that this has a hold on us anymore. And so hopefully that is helpful. I'm sure it is. But yeah, really sit with that and breathe into that. And the thing I love about sharing transmissions at this level is that those who are also aware of this level, it feels like truth because it is. It's the greater reality, not the false reality. People who are still enmeshed really densely in this false reality can't access this. And so to them, it'll be like, oh, they don't know that's, well, I don't get it. Or, it's a load of rubbish or whatever the stories are that revolve here. It's because, they haven't yet been able to allow themselves to access the higher reality in that way. Okay, cool. All right. So the other part of this that I wanted to share a little bit more about changing relationships with others through our work. And I love that was completely unintentional, but that last bit that just came through about this, about people stuck in this, actually segues beautifully into changing relationships through our work. It's like, because we're all sovereign beings, we can't make anybody understand this until people are ready to open their awareness to this. They're not going to get this. So there's nothing we can do to make them get this. But what's really important is that this doesn't stop us from this. Just breathing into that this, other people's stories from asleepness, doesn't prevent our continued evolution and awakening. This is really important. So, no, particularly being empaths and super sensitives, which is, what's actually allowed us to come to here to understand this, but it also has us feeling this very deeply. But it's really important to maintain our sovereignty that we don't allow this to, pull ourselves down, to pull us back into that stickiness. It's sticky enough. We've got enough of our own stickiness still that weaves through. It happens less and less. I promise you that. The more you stabilize this reality, the less that this is a match. And so, when stuff like this comes up, you're actually able to see the bigger picture so it doesn't pull you back down into that. And, it just takes work and repetition.